In this episode, we're going to talk about how you can manage sibilance in your dialogue audio for film and video. Check this out. First of all, what is sibilance? Sibilance is that nasty sounding, sort of sizzly distortion sound you get when people say the letters S or C. So how does sibilance get into your audio recordings? Well, there are three main factors that I've found over time. Number one is that some people have more sibilant voices than others, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. It is pretty much what it is. People can learn to kind of de-emphasize it a little bit. Number two, some mics tend to be a little bit more sensitive in that particular area and pick up more of the sibilance than others. And the third factor is how you use the mic, particularly if we're talking about lav mics, can make a big difference in terms of whether or not you pick up sibilance or how much you pick up. So let's talk about each one of those in turn and see what things we can do to manage each of those. The first one, again, is some people have more sibilant voices than others, and there's not necessarily a whole lot you can do about that. And in fact, I typically recommend you stay away from that altogether. I wouldn't even mention it to talent unless it's someone that you work with all the time and they can have some time to kind of work on it. But if you're getting ready to do a shoot and you notice that someone has a sibilant voice, and what I found out in my experience is if you say something about it to them then, they tend to lose focus and you may not get as good a performance or as good an interview out of them. So it's probably best to just leave that alone and try to deal with it some other ways. The next factor again was the choice of mic. Some mics tend to be a little bit more sensitive to sibilance than others. That is, they pick up more of it. And I especially find that's the case with less expensive mics. They tend to pick up more sibilance. And there are probably, I don't know all the reasons for why some do and some don't. I think one of the factors is the metal grill or basket over the mic itself can play a factor. If it's a tighter basket, in some cases that can result in more of that high frequency kind of bouncing around inside the basket and creating more of that hiss and distortion. But some mics tend to be better at than others. And so if you're looking for a mic, if you haven't purchased one yet, or if you're looking to buy another one, that's something that you should probably consider when you're listening to samples. When you're talking to other people that may have the mics, that could be really helpful. For example, Dave Dugdale recently posted a comparison of the Sennheiser lav mic that comes with their G3 wireless system relative to two Rode lavalier mics. And what he found was that Sennheiser was very, very sibilant relative to the two Rode mics. So just something to keep in mind. Now I realize that's a very, very popular mic system, the Sennheiser, and it's the wireless part of it is definitely bulletproof, but it does tend to be a more sibilant microphone, so just something to keep in mind there. Now, the third factor, and what I think is probably the most important factor, is how you use the mic. So if you already have a mic and it does tend to pick up a lot of sibilance and you tend to work with talent that have a lot of sibilance in their voice, don't despair, there are some things you can do. Technique. And I think the biggest thing is that if you have a lav mic, and this is in particular to lav mics, if you have a lav mic that tends to be fairly sibilant, if you can remove the metal grill, that's a first step. If you've got one of the foam covers or a furry cover you can put on it, that can go a long way at reducing sibilance, and definitely recommended that you go that way. If you don't have either one of those, another technique is to put the mic underneath the clothing of your talent, and that can make a huge difference as well. So let me just give you a quick example here. Okay, first example here. In this case, I'm using a lavalier mic with the metal basket on top of it, the metal grill, if you will. And let me just say, she sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. That's an example of what kind of sibilance you can expect in this particular case. Now let's take this exact same mic. I've got it this time underneath my sort of jacket, whatever this material is called, polar fleece or whatever, fleece jacket, and give you another example. So this is with that over the microphone, and I also took the metal grill or metal basket off of the mic. In this particular mic, I can do that. And she sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. If you do end up with sibilance in your recording, don't despair. There is one more thing you can do. In post-processing, you can use something called a De-Esser, which actually de-emphasizes the frequencies where the sibilance occurs. Check this out. All right, I brought in a recording here of me talking into a microphone, trying to create some sibilance, and indeed it sounds like I did. Let's just play through it really quickly so you can hear. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. Okay, those S's definitely have plenty of sibilance in them. So let's see what we can do to fix this. My general approach is going to be, well, first of all, I'm going to be using Adobe Audition here. The same principles apply to any editing application you're going to be using for your audio, but this is the one I happen to have and I'm going to be using in this demonstration. First of all, I try to identify the frequency where the sibilance is occurring, and I use Parametric Equalizer to do that. We'll show you that in just a second. And then I use a De-Esser to dial in that frequency and help mellow out that frequency a little bit. So let's go ahead and pull in our Parametric Equalizer. And so the first thing I do is I go ahead and select one of these points and I crank the gain way up. Let's go maybe to something like 32. And then I'm going to narrow that down a little bit using the Q or width setting. Whoops. Dial that down maybe to 9, right in there. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is while I'm playing the audio, I'm going to sweep this back and forth until I hear it really, really, really emphasize the sibilance. And that'll be the frequency that we're going to want to target when we use the De-Esser. So typically for sibilance, it's going to occur somewhere between the 3500 and 3500 is probably a little low. That's pretty rare. But on the top end, maybe up to 12,000 hertz. So we're going to sweep it between those two ranges there until we can really kind of find the sibilance. It really emphasizes sibilance, and then we'll come back and apply a De-Esser. So here we go. She sells seashells by the seashore. 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 Okay, right there, I think we found it at 10,177. So we're going to go ahead and disable that plugin because we've got our number now. And we're going to bring in our De-Esser. And we're going to dial in 10,177. Okay. Then we also get to choose how wide a frequency range. So that's our center, but we also get to choose how wide. We're going to go ahead and start with that at 7,500, which is the widest. A couple other settings up here that we skipped. Let's come back to those. Mode, I will choose multiband. Multiband is typically what you're going to want to use for a De-Esser. If yours doesn't have that option, it probably is already doing multiband. And then you also get to set, in this case, threshold. So I'm going to crank it down to -40 just so that we can really make it stand out. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and check this output sibilance only. We want to hear just the frequencies that this De-Esser is going to affect. So let's go ahead and play some more and see what it sounds like. Again, this is just the sibilance that it should be playing. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells. Okay, I think it's pretty much nailed it. You can see that this gain reduction here is taking that frequency range and just reducing the output level. When it encounters some sibilance, or well, when it encounters signal, it actually just drops it down in this frequency range that we've identified here. One thing we might want to do is see if we can tighten up this bandwidth a little bit and still take care of the sibilance. So as I play through it again, I'm going to kind of tweak this around a little bit and just see what happens. Okay, let's go ahead then and uncheck the output sibilance only. Let's hear what the overall thing sounds like. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. Wow, that's really done a pretty decent job at taking care of some of that sibilance. So again, I'm no expert on using De-Essers, but if you know of better ways to do it that work better than that, go ahead and let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for checking out the episode. If you have questions or suggestions on how to do this even better, go ahead and leave comments down below for us. And if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that. And we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you later.